Put it on, and then we can share again. Okay, can you see the yeah, you can see it. Okay, geweldig.
Yeah.
We are up to Omar Mar, the second line from the top on Tezai number Aleph.
Right.
Omar Mar, Hashoichet b'muchani. If you shecht with like a wheel, like a wheel that's turning,
Right.
I look at it like a circular saw.
A potter's wheel, yeah.
So the loch is shchitasai ksera. The shchit is kosher. I frag the Gemara of Tanya shechitasai psula. Dr. Gemara loy kasha. Hub is sign of the pachra, like what you said, a potter's wheel, which the movement is caused by the person, because the potter's wheel has probably some type of pedal with which he operated it.
Right.
That's why it's ksera. Hub is sign of the maya. If it's a water mill type of apparatus where there's no
human
intervention.
Yeah.
So Rashi, what's the problem if there's no shchita mikoyach adam? Utnan lekaman, we're going to see on Daf Lamed Aleph. It says nafla, a knife fell. The shachta and the shechted chishtat psula. The chsiv vizavachta v'yachalta. Masha ata zeveach. You have to do a shchita, meaning there has to be human involvement. That's what ata oichel. Okay, so zok the Gemara. Biboy sema, or maybe another pshat. Haba b'sarna the maya, and sometimes it'll be a kosher shchita. Even if it's operated by the water, but someone has to open up the valve to let the water start operating this wheel. If it checks like right away when you open up the water to the wheel, that's considered still your
cover.
Mashenkin, if it's running for a while and then you make the shchita, that will not be called a human doing it. So how b'koyach richin, how b'koyach sheni. V'chihad Amar Papa, just like our Papa taught us. Haiman the kavsei lechavri. What if someone ties up his friend? He ties him down, and then he opens up a valve and he diverts a river to go drown this guy. But Ashkel alei bitka demaya umis, and he died. Chayiv. Why? My time up. Giri dilehu. It's giri didehu. It's his arrow that caused the death, because when he opened up the water, it kills the guy. But this is where we have to qualify it. That's only if right when the water comes out, it's right away drowns him. Then it would be considered his gira today. Let's see Rashi. Kavse kashrei ashkalei bid kadamaya shehifna hamayim laver alav v'niaruhu. He diverted the water to run over this person and drown him. Chayiv, because that's considered a hargoy mamish ba'oishad hamayim. V'heinen tlizaynai. What is the weapon with which he killed his friend? The water. Well, they have a grama that's not called a grama. That's Rashi davka b'koyach rishon shekashrei. First of all, where did he tie him up? He was right near the water. So when he opens up the valve, and that's why he's high. But if it's b'koyach sheni, for instance, he tied him down in the path of the river, but far down. Even though he's the one who diverted the water there, potter, because that's a grama ba'almum. Gewaltig. So you see that there's a difference between koyach rishon, which is called his ma'isa, versus a koyach sheni. Zok to Gemara, Yosef Rav, a chayred Reb Chia. Rav was sitting in yeshiva behind Reb Chia. So Reb Chia was the senior student. Reb Chia kamei the Rebbe, and Reb Chia was sitting in front of the Rebbe. The Yosef Rebbe v'ko Amar, and the Rebbe taught the following lesson to his talmidim. Oh, I get the Vach Reb Ephraim. So Rebbe was teaching the following lesson. It says in the pasuk, "Minayin l'shchita shehu b'tolish." How do you know that when you shech, it has to be something that's tolish, not mechubar l'karka? Now we just had a sugya a couple of days ago where we had a machloikis between Rabbi Chia, who holds it's mutter lechatchila, and Rebbe, who holds it's only mutter b'di'evet. But here we're going to have to see how this sugya is going to blend with that sugya. So Rebbe said, "Minayin l'shchita shubatosh shenemar vayikach es hamachelas l'shchot." Avram Avinu took the machelas to shecht Yitzchak. If he took the machelas, that means it's obviously not mechuber. It's obviously tolish. Okay, gewaltig. Amalei Rebbe, Amalei Rav, Rabbi Chia. So Rav asked Rabbi Chia, my comer, I don't understand the halacha that Rebbe just taught. In other words, how do you see from this pasuk of Vayikach Esem Acheles that shchita is only kosher with a chalaf? Zok to Gemara, Amalei Rav Rabbi Chia, my comer, Amalei Vav Dechsiv A'ufsa Ka'amar. The reason why I don't understand it is because it's not a good raya. If you wrote a letter vav on a piece of wood that you're going to chop up, and there's a whole bunch of slices in it, you can't see the vav clearly. That's one shot. The other shot is the vav is the cut. In other words, it's a chopped up, not good raya. How do you see from this pasuk that you have to shech b'tolish? Frank Gemara, what was Rav's concern? Va karaka amar. He quoted a pasuk that says "Vayikach Esem Acheles." Sounds like it's a very good raya. Zok Gemara, no, because maybe the reason why Avram Avinu took the macheles is merely zizuse to Avram Kamash Malon. Not telling you Allah Nechel Shchita. It's trying to tell you that Avram Avinu picked up the knife to go Bizrizas to do the mitzvah, but you don't see anything about the Hilchah Shchita from here. Zok Rashi. Zrizuzat Avram Kamashalon, Shachosh, Vinizar, Shema lo yimtzet tzur, afilu mechuber. Vibalt, he was afraid that when he gets to the Makam Akeda, he wouldn't be able to find even something that was mechuber, which would have been mutter, and therefore behevi imoy machalas, he brought a knife with him from home. Zok to Gemara, therefore you don't have a raya. So right now it's unclear, do we have a raya that shchita must be done b'tolish? Amar Rava, Zok Rava, Shitali, it's pasha to me that tolish ulu b'soiv chibroi, if it was originally tolish, and then you connected it, for instance, you had a knife, that was tolish, and you connected it, you cemented it to the ground. Now, that would be relevant to shchita. We're talking about now le'ina b'niskachavim. Tolish ulu b'soiv chibroi le'ina b'niskachavim hava tolish. That's got tolish. Now, we know the halacha is, if you bow down to a dover mechubel karka, even though you're chayiv misa, the avodah zarah does not become aser bana, because it says in the pasuk. Rashi quotes the pasuk. It says in the pasuk. I'm trying to read the pasuk. It says in the Gemara, Eloi heyem alaharim. Their getchkes are on the mountains, but v'loi haharim Eloi heyem. The harim could never be a getchke. A har, which is mechuber lekarka, of course, would never be able to be aser. So what would be the halacha if it was tolish or b'soiv chivrei? You had a getchke that was a loose getchke, and then you bonded it to the ground. Would that be considered mechuber, and it would not be subject to becoming aser b'noah if you serve it as an avodah zarah? Or maybe it's considered tolish. So zok gemara pshitali zok Rava, tolish or b'soiv chivrei is tolish. That's for sure tolish, and you will aser. So if you bow down to your own house, you aser your house, because your house is tolish with l'b'soiv chivrei. The Amar Mar, Hamashtach v'l'bayis shloi asra. V'yisol kedai t'chav mechuber, if you would hold the house as mechuber, even though it was tolish, it was bricks and building material that you bonded to the ground, then it should be immune to becoming possible also the avodah zarah, because Elohim al-harim. Zok to Gemara. Therefore, avodah zarah for sure, tolish u'l'soiv chibroi is tolish. What about l'inyan hechsher zroim? Now, hechsher zroim is very interesting. We know it says v'chiyutan mayim al sarah. The only time a peri becomes hukshul kabel tuma is if water falls on it, but with the
approval.
With the approval of the balabayis. Now, what would happen if I had a keli and I wanted to fill up a jug with water. I wanted to fill up with rainwater. And I put it out in the rain, and it filled up with rainwater. Now, the question is, what if that falls on Paris, and I didn't want it to fall on Paris? So I wanted the water to fall into the keli, but I didn't want the water to fall from the keli onto the Paris. The loch is that's huksher, because you don't need it. When it says the chiyutan, it doesn't mean that it has to fall on the Paris with your approval. It just means it has to fall with your approval. Now the question would be, what if it fell into a bore? What if it fell into a bore with your approval? That's mechubel l'karka. That would not be machshir. If it fell into a keli with your approval, and then that keli spilled on the peri, even though it spilled on the peri, and you didn't want it to spill on the peri, that's going to be huksher l'kabatul. Because the water originally went into your keli that was tolosh with nichusa. If it fell into a bore in the ground, even if you were nicha, that water, if it fell on payers, will not make them huksher, unless when it fell on the payers, he wanted it to go on the payers. So then that's like a new nesinah smaim on the payers. But the nesinah smaim into the bar is definitely not a chiyutan because it's mechubel l'karka. So what happens if you had a keli that was tolish and you were mechaber it to the karka, and now the question is, the water fell into it, and you're happy with it. Is that like it fell into a bar and it would not be huksher l'kabel tuma, or is that like it fell into a loose keli? So zok the heilige gemara leinin hechsher zeroyim hanoihi to machloikas tonight. It's not we learned hakoifa kaira ala koisel b'shvil shatuna. You know it's raining, so you hung a bowl on the wall, or plate on the wall, because you wanted it to get rinsed off in the rain. The loch is hareze b'chiyuta, because you wanted the water to fall on the keli, which was tolish, and therefore the water that falls on the keli is now mayim that could be machshir's rain. What if the reason why you put it on the wall was not to rinse the keli, rather it was to protect the wall from getting wet? You just put it there to stop the wall from getting wet, then it's ain't a b'chiyuta. Then it's not b'chiyuta because the water didn't fall on anything that you wanted it to fall on. Zok the Gemara, Haguf Akasha. This brisa that we just quoted is a stira munei. Why? Because the Rosh says if you put it on the wall, mipnei shetudach b'shvil shetudach, meaning so the keli should get rinsed off, hareza b'chiyuta. Now from there I could be medayik. The keli is a not a mechubel l'karka, it's a tolish. So I could have made it the akal b'shvil sheyudach hakoisel. What if I been dafka wanted the koisel to get wet? Ain't there b'chiyutan? It's much. It wouldn't be b'chiyutan. It's dafka keli that when water falls on it, it's b'chiyutan, but not a wall. Why? Because a wall is mechuber l'karka, but it's tolish l'b'sayv chivra. The wall wasn't there from sheish memorization. You built it with blocks. So that's the first half of the brisa. But then b'hadatani it says, what if you put it on the wall b'shvil shelo yilak hakoisel? I want to stop water from getting on the koisel. That's in b'chiyutan. Ha b'shvil sheyudach hakoisel. What if I b'dafka wanted water to fall on the koisel? Hareza b'chiyutan, it would be b'chiyutan. So from the Rosh, it's mashma tolish ulub'sayv chibroi is not b'chiyutan, and from the same it's mashma tolish ulub'sayv chibroi is b'chiyutan. What's the stira? Amar Belazar Tavra. You have to break this brisa in half. Misha shonazu loy shonazu. The brisa is actually the words of two separate tanoim. So now let's read the brisa again. Hakoy v'kaira alashol alakoisel b'shvil shetudach harei zeh b'chiyutan. But if you let it go on the water, b'shvil, if you put it on the water, if you let the water go on the wall because you wanted the wall to get wet, that wouldn't be b'chiyutan. So that's the first Tana who hold that Polish l'b'sayv chivroi is not b'chiyutan. Then the same of the brisa is if the same brisa argues and says no, on the koisel, if you put on the koisel b'shvil tudach, it's the same as b'shvil shelo yilak hakoisel, and therefore would be any b'chiyutan. So we're splitting up the brisa. Let's see Rashi. Dibra Masel Tavra, Kasha Hachrei Seifa. Zok Rashi, Utrei Tanoinu. There's actually two Tanoim in this Mishnah. The Brisa. Mar Choshev Le Tolish, L'Hai Kaisel. The first Tanoim that's considered Tolish. Umar Choshev Le Mechuber. I'm sorry, the second Tanoim is Tolish, and the first Tanoim is Mechuber. Mar Choshev Le Tolish, Hoyel V'Lav Mechuber Meikari. Since it's not Mechuber Meikari, it's made of individual mobile blocks that were built together. Shefer Hoyel Avon Telushois V'Chibram Bebinyan. And therefore it's considered tolish, and it would be b'chiyutan, which is the sefer. Mar choshev le mechuber, one considers mechuber behind tanoi the amar leil. These are tanoim that we're talking about. So let's go back to the Bryce itself again. So akoy v'kara l'koysel b'shvil shetu the chayej b'chiyutan. So you're medayik. Ha, if you put it on if you wanted to make the koysel wet, it would not be b'chiyutan. Why? Because the first time the whole Tolish L'B'Soy Chibroi has a din of Mechuber. The second time it says B'Shvil Shelo Yiloka Koisel is just like if I put it on to make the Koisel wet and it's any B'Chiyutam because Tolish L'B'Soy Chibroi has a din of Mechuber. So that's the Machlokes according to the first pshat. But Rav Papa Amar no, Kulu Chatanu, and it's all going according to one Tana. So we have a steer from the Rosh to the Sefer. Ha b'koisel ma'ira, ha b'koisel binyan. The first dik where we made dafka, if you fell on the keli, will it be makabel toma? But if it fell on the wall, it's eni b'chiyutan. That's speaking about a koisel ma'ira, which is mechuber meikare, because it's speaking where you have a wall there's a wall that's in a cave that is naturally that way. It wasn't built. So that's mechuber meikare. That's what the Rosh is diak is. Ha b'koisel binyan, but the sefer which is mashma that if you let the water get on the wall because you want the wall to get wet, that it's considered kiyutan. That's because that's tolish l'chibra. V'achi gomer hakoy v'kaira l'koisel b'shil shetudach harezeh b'chiyutan. When do we say that Allah that's dafka the koisel myra? Because it's mechuber meikarai. Avol koisel binyan. If you did it b'shvil shelo yilak koisel, dafka if shelo yilak koisel, who the ena b'chiyutan, because you don't want the water to get on the koisel. But if you wanted the water to get on the koisel, this koisel was tolish and chivroi, and has enough tolish and the rezeh b'chiyutan. So according to the first pshat, it's machlokes tanoim. If tolish ulubasam chibroi is going to be chiyuta, and according to our Papa's pshat, everybody holds that tolish ulubasam chibroi is considered tolish. Boy Rava had a shayla, and let's turn on to Amud Beis. What about l'inyan shchita in the case of tolish u'l'b'soif chibra? Zokt Rashi, didn't we just discuss it a minute ago? I know it Aleph. Zokt Rashi u'mehuda l'il loy mash m'lei l'Rava k'dim aparish v'az. From what we learned before, Rav is going to hold that you can't learn anything from there. So let's go look back to Ahuda l'il. Ahuda l'il. Hudla is not even today's daf. Hudla is we learned a couple of days ago where we had a machlokes if it's the Eved or if it's lechatchila. Now we're clearing maybe it's even possible with the Eved. So clearly our sugya here is going to be different. Understand the braysos differently than the sugyas we had before. My zoktamar toshma hayatzur yoytzim in a kos. What if there was a rock, pointy rock, sticking out of the wall? Oy shahaya kana oyla me'ela. Or there was a rod that grew out of the ground by itself, like some type of reed grew out of the ground. B'shachat boy, and you shechted with it. The halacha is shchita psul. So it says how you tsur yoitim nakoisel. Sur yoitim nakoisel is mashma. It was tolush because it's a wall that you built. A tsur is coming out of it. That means you built it that way, which means it's tolush. So you have a raya that it's puzzle. So it's Gemara, no, you don't have a raya. Hakav and you know what type of wall we're talking about? The Kaisel Ma'ira. It was a naturally occurring sharp rock that came out of this side of the cave wall. And it's Mechuber Meikare, that's why it's puzzle. Dekanami, it's more meduyik to say that that's what this Bryce is talking about. Because what's the other case in the Bryce? Kana ha'olam ha'elam. Dumi the kana ha'olam ha'elam. Kana ha'olam ha'elam, by definition, is a group by itself, meaning it's Mechuber Meikare. So too, the Tzur Yoitim Nakazel is speaking by Mechuber Meikare Shmaim. Tashma, let's try bring the raya from another Bryce. No atzakin b'kaisel. That's very clear. It was talish l'msei chibroi. You stuck a knife into the kaisel. V'shachat ba, and you shechted with it shchitas kshera. So now you have a raya that talish l'msei chibroi is considered talish. Zok the Gemara, no, that's not a raya. Shiny sakin delay mevatali. The sakin, it's not even called talish l'msei chibroi. It's completely talish. Because when you stick a knife into the wall, you're not planning to be mevatel it there and leave it there forever. You're going to take it out. The sakin has its own independence, its own cheshivas. And therefore, that's not even called talish l'msei chibroi. That's mamish talish. And that's why it's kosher. Tashma, let's try another ayah. B'mechuber. What if it was mechuber? We're on Tezayin and base. And we're discussing whether or not, if you have a shchita utensil that was originally tolish and then you bonded it to a wall, would that be a kosher shchita if you use that to share? So Tashma, b'mechuber l'karka, if it was mechuber l'karka, shchita s'kshera. So you see, klor, even mechuber mamish is shchita s'kshera. Zok Gemara, this is the beginning of the brisa of not sakin b'koisel. So Zok Gemara, Dilma Perusha Kama Parishla. My mechuber l'karka. What type of mechuber l'karka are we saying? That if you shecht with it shchitas kshera, it's the case that the brisa brings later. It's sakin. It's a case where you connected a sakin to the wall, the loy mevatlei, because that mechuber is not considered mechuber; it's considered tol. Amar Mar, not sakin b'koisel. What if you bounded a knife to the wall, v'shachat bo, and you shechted with it? Shchitas kshera, that shchita would be kosher. Amar Avan and Amar Shmuel, Lo Shanu, when do we say it's kosher? That's Elisha Sakin Lamaila B'Tzavar Behema Lamata. Now, you have to imagine what's happening over here. You're moving the neck of the animal back and forth. So you're holding the neck up to the blade, and you're moving it back and forth. That's where it would be kosher to shecht with a stationary knife. Avol Sakin Lamata B'Tzavar Behema Lamaila, you have a big heavy cow on top of your knife. What if you don't support it properly, even for a second, the weight of the neck is going to push down on the blade. That's going to be drasa. So therefore, we're afraid that will lead to drasa, and therefore you cannot check that way. Break the Gemara. The problem is, how could you tell me that it's a problem if the sakin is lamata and the tzavar behem is lamaila? We have a brayso that says, we have a mishnah that says differently. Fakatoni bein she'asakin lamata v'tzavar behem lamaila, bein she'asakin lamaila v'tzavar behem lamata. So how could Rabbanan say in the name of Shmuel that you cannot shecht if the behemoth's neck is on top? The mishnah, the brayso that we quoted, says that you could shecht lechatchila when the neck of the behemoth is on top. Amar Abzvid l'tadin katani. That's not how you read it. When the brayso says bein she'asakin lamato, bein she'asakin lamayla, it's referring to the earlier case in the Mishnah where it says that you can shecht side with tolush and side with mechuber. So zok lebzit l'tzadim kadoni sakin lamata v'tzaver behema lamayla. That's betolush because then you're shechting by moving the knife. But sakin lamayla v'tzaver behema lamata mechuber, that will even work for mechuber. Rapapa Amar, no, you can say it's speaking even by mechuber. Even by mechuber, you could say that it's when the neck is on top. But you're not talking about a behemoth that's so heavy that will press down. But for the color, we're speaking about a bird. By a bird, there's no problem if the bird's on top and the knife's on the bottom, because it's very light and there's no chance or little chance that it's going to lead to dross. Amr Chisda, Amr Yitzchak, Amri Law, B'Masnisatan. Hey Devarim Nemu B'Kroy Mishal Kam. There are 5 halachas that we learned related to a reed. And those are as follows. Number 1, Ein Sheichten Ba, you're not allowed to shecht with it. And we're going to see why. Rashi says you can't shecht with it because the reed tends to splinter. And when you're shechting, if it splinters, it's going to cause a psul in the shchita, it's going to puncture the beshet or something. That's going to be a problem. So that's number 1. Next thing you can't do is vein malaba. You can't mal it because once again, if a splinter comes out of it, it could damage chas v'sholom the gid and make the child into a krushavka who can't come with bakal Hashem. Vein mechatchem v'vasar. You're not allowed to cut meat with it. You know why? Because if some splinters get out into the meat and then you eat it, you can hurt yourself. And the other thing you can't do is ve'in mechatzin b'shinayim. You're not allowed to pick your teeth with it for the same reason. Ve'in mekanchen ba, and you're not allowed to wipe yourself with it because once again the splinters could break off and cause damage where the sun don't shine. Zok the Gemara. Let's analyze this brisa. Ein shaychtim ba. You're not allowed to shech b'kroy mishal kana. We have a brisa that says otherwise. V'tanya b'koyel shaychtim bein b'tzur bein b'schuches bein b'kroy mishal kana. Amar Papa, not all kroy mishal kanas were created equal. V'simuna da agma. You know what type of kana you're allowed to shecht with? That's the one from the aga, which is very moist and it doesn't splinter. That's the type of kroy mishal kana you can shecht with. But you cannot shecht with a regular reed, which would be drier, because that might splinter. Ve'in mechatchem b'chavosar, you can't cut meat. Zok the Gemara, Papa mechatach ba kirvei dogim. Rapapa, even though you're not allowed to cut meat with this kroy mishal kana, Rapapa would cut the intestines of fish with it. You know why? The zigi, they're transparent, and if a splinter goes in, you'll be able to see it, and you can remove it. But meat, it'll go into the meat, and you won't see it, and it could be dangerous. Rabbi Bar Avuna machatach ba'oifa. He would cut birds with it, the rochich, because the meat was very soft, and the kroy mishal kana wouldn't splinter from cutting a knife. The Mishnah, the Bryce that we quoted says you can't use it to wipe yourself. Correct the Gemara. Why do you need our Mishnah telling you that you can't wipe yourself? The kroy mishal kana, because of the danger of a splinter causing damage. Typically, there's a bigger problem that's overarching. You can never wipe with anything that's flammable. Shinav Naisharis, it's going to cause his private part down there, it's going to cause it to fall off, it's going to cause damage. So you don't need dafka because it's a kana with splinters. Anything that's flammable, you're not supposed to use. Omar Papa, Hinuach Pi Maka Kamrinan. We're not talking about wiping yourself. When it says Ein Mekachaba, it means wiping off a wound. That's what you can't do, because that you could do with something shar shalatas bite. Dafka something that splinters you can't use to clean off a wound. We had a very interesting expression in the Mishnah. It said Hakol Shaychten, Ula'olam Shaychten, and Bakol Shaychten. So what is this Hakol Shaychten coming to be marbet? And what is the La'olam Shaychten coming to be marbet? Dr. Gemara, Hakol Shaychten tells you that Hakol B'Shchita, every animal needs to be shechted, V'afilu oif, even a bird has to be shechted. The Torah doesn't say beferish that an oif has to be shechted. So we're learning from the Hakol, the Torah is telling you, you should know that you have to shecht a knife, even though it doesn't say beferish in the Torah. Okay, about it. What does that mean to tell you? Man Tana, who's the Tana of the Mishnah that tells us over here, you can shecht all the time? Zok to Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yishmael. Our Tana must be Rabbi Shmuel. Because according to Rabbi Shmuel, you need this Mishnah to tell us that La'olam Shayten. Why? The Tanya says in the Brisa, when Klal Yisrael was in the Midbar, Hashem said, when you get into Eretz Yisrael, and you're going to spread out your grenade, you're going to spread out your perimeter, like I promised you, And you're going to say, I want to eat basar taiva. I don't only want to eat meat if I bring it for a carbon. I want to still enjoy dining upon meat. B'shmol Omer, Zokra B'shmol, Loi Ba Kosov Elu Lahater Lehem Basar Taiva. The Torah is coming to tell us that when we get into Yisrael, we'll be allowed to eat meat, even though it's not a carbon. So when they're in the midbar, Nesel Lehem Basar Taiva. They were not allowed to eat meat just because they wanted meat, only if it was brought as part of a carbon. But when they came in there to Yisrael, Hutter Lehem Basar Taiva. Basar Taiva became mutter for them. And we're going to have to see why in a minute, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there. The Gemara is going to tell us why. So v'achshav, nowadays shagolo that we're in Golos, yochol yachseru l'isur narishain. You would have thought that now it should be just like when we were in the midbar, and we're not allowed to eat basar taiva anymore. L'kach sheninu. That's why the Tana tells us in our Mishnah, la'olam shaycher. You can always shech. You can always eat. Correct the Gemara for Maskav Rabbi Yosy. That's not a good pshat. First of all, Hai la'olam shaychen. It doesn't mean la'olam shaychen. It means la'olam oichlin basar taiva. So that's what it should have said. Hai la'olam shaychen, la'olam shaychen va'oichlin mibaylei. Because the whole chiddush is that you're allowed to eat meat. It's not about shchita. About eating shchita. The chiddush of the Mishnah would be saying that you're allowed to eat basar taiva. So the lashon of Mishnah should have been akol shaychen va'oichlin. I got another problem. Meikara, my time at Itzer. Why was basar taiva also in the midbar? Mishum davim mikra v'lamishkan. In the midbar, the whole Machli Yisrael was tightly wrapped around the Mishkan. So it was very easy to eat meat if you needed to, because you could bring a carbon, because you were always very close in proximity to the Mizbeach, to the Mishkan, to bring a carbon. Ulubasayif my time at Ishtru. Why did it become mutter to eat basar taiva when they came into Yisrael? Because when they got into Yisrael, people could live in a lot, people could live very far away from the Beis HaMikdash. How are they going to eat meat? They have to schlep all the way to the Beis HaMikdash to bring a carbon to eat meat. So that's why the Torah was matter basar taiva. Once we're in Golos, the Koshkin, when we're in Golos, where we're very, very far away from the Mishkan. Koshkin there, it should be mutter to eat basar taiva. So why do I need our Mishnah to tell me la'olam you can eat basar taiva? It's possible you can eat basar taiva because we live very far away. The choshken hashda the archika lutvei. And la'omer Rabbi Yosef, you know what the chiddush of la'olam shoichin? Rabbi Akiva he. It's going according to Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya ki yirchak mimcha amokai asher yivchar Hashem alekecha losum samoisham. When we're going to be far from the place that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us to bring our kabbanis, which is the Beis HaMikdash, you'll be able to shecht and eat. Now, what chiddush is it telling us? It's not telling us about basar taiva. Rabbi Akiva learns, Rabbi Akiva Omer leba kosav elo lesser than basar nechiva. The Torah was telling you that now, once we're in Eretz Yisrael, you're no longer just allowed to stab the animal to death. You have to shecht it properly. Shebetchila in the midbar, huter lahen basar nechira. Now for kachim, you have to shecht. But if you wanted to eat basar taiva, or Kiva held you were allowed to eat basar taiva in the midbar, but there's no mitzvah of shchita. There was no mitzvah of shchita given to eat a regular animal. So when they came into Israel, that's when Hashem told them, "V'zavachta mi bekarcha b'tayim." Now you have to start shechting. Shenichtu eretz nesel and basar nechira. Achshav shegolu. Now that we're in Golos, yochel yachsu latena risha, and you might think you can go back to nechira. L'kach sheninu la'olam shaychtin. So the olam shaychtin. Once there's a chiyuv to shecht meat, la'olam moed. Even though there's no Beis HaMikdash, there's always a chiyuv to shecht in order to be able to eat meat. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were zocheh to finish Daf Tes Zayin, and Be'ez Hashem tomorrow we're going to learn Daf Yud Zayin.
Go
Hayoim.
I think from Rashi before it says with the cave, it's left after a natural cave. It could be even a man-made cave.
It could be a man-made cave, but the way you carved it out,
right?
You take a loose piece of rock and put it there. You carved around it. That's right.
My question is, how does the rain get there?
How does the rain get into a cave?
Yeah.
I mean, he could build it in such a way where the opening is on the top.
If what?
You could build it in such a way where the opening from
Oh, it's on top. Right here.
take a Baltic.
Yeah, Shkoyer.
Good, I get the Vach.
Well, when are you heading back?
I'm planning to leave around. I'm planning to leave around 9:30 because my Shvigas yard side is base Sivan. So we're gonna make it after Shkia. So as soon as we finish, we'll be able to.
Oh, 9:30 at night.
Yeah,
Oh, so you're saying you're in the morning?
yeah, about it.
And Monday? You think?